chapters. We covered spreadsheets in fourth form, the first term. We covered database in the second term, and last term in fourth form we covered the word processing. So this term we're going to start the web page design. I would have already posted your notes in the Google Classroom, and you would notice it's only 3 chapters. And well, that's one of the reasons why we can push in a little revision. But the programming part is actually a bit lengthy. It's a lot of chapters, a lot of information, and that's why it's usually left last, because it's the most technical part of the topic, of the subject. So that's why you guys gotta understand the first 4 as much as possible before we actually head into programming, because that's gonna take up most of our time there. So we're going to start with web page design, introduction to web page design. One thing to note is that if you can remember from the word processing SBA, one of the instruction told you in the letter to add a link to a website. You guys remember that?
Yes, sir.
Good. So that link is there because you're actually going to be creating your own website. So in that same letter, so you guys are going to have to do over back your letter, not really do it over back, but add in that link and do back your mail merge with the link inside of it. So when we're finished with this chapter here, we are going to, when we're finished with those 3 chapters, we're going to head into developing our web page, and you would put that link when you're finished inside of your letter. So, introduction to web page design. Now, I know some of you, well, the technical persons, they would know about HTML, and that is basically how websites are developed. They use a language called HTML. But CXC does not require you to learn that language. So, like how you would hear about a person creating a program, and they would have to learn a programming language in order to develop a program. It's basically the same with a web page. You have to learn a language called HTML to develop that web page. But CXC does not require you to learn that, because there is much simpler ways today of developing web pages. You guys understand anything I'm saying, or I'm confusing?
Yes, sir, we understand.
Yes, sir.
The technical persons are going to understand, but the average persons, you guys are following? Mahima, Celicia.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Alright, so let's get into web page design, the introduction to web page design. So we're gonna have a reader. Alia, you can read the first paragraph for us.
Yes, sir. A website is a document you can view using a browser. It may contain text, images, videos, and hyperlinks to other web pages and apps. Web pages are usually written in a language called HTML, Hypertext Markup Language, a universal language that was developed to predict the layout of web pages. Do not become confused by thinking that the HTML is a programming language. It isn't. It contains 4 tags that a web browser uses to present the text and images on the web. The browser then interprets these tags into bits and formats the web page for execution.
Very good. So remember, we already have a difficulty with Not a full difficulty, a somewhat difficulty with following with spreadsheet, database, and Word. So please don't let that be an issue with web page design. If you have a misunderstanding, you're not following something, for this term, let us fully understand web page design before we move on to anything else. Are we in agreement?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So, the first thing I want you guys to take note of is that a web page is like a document. So, I want you to compare that to a Word document. So, just like how you would use Microsoft Word and you would have all of these files and you would open these files inside of the Microsoft document. That is an actual representation of how a web page works. Your web page, take note of these keywords. Web page is basically a document. It's like having a page, but you're using a special program called a browser in order to open that page or document. So just like how you would save a file, on your computer, save a Word document file in your computer, you double click on it, and it opens inside of Microsoft Word. That is basically what a web page is. It's a bunch of files that are stored on a computer, and when you open that web page, it uses a software called a browser in order to view the content in that document. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Good. So you can imagine so with that description that I just gave there, a web page is like a document that you open in a browser. So what would you describe or what would you imagine a website to be like? What would you compare it to be like? Based on this line here, if anybody was imagining it. Or if anybody pick up in what direction I'm headed in. If it's a document with pages, what would you call a website now? Or how would you imagine a website? What has pages inside of it?
A book.
A book. Very good, a book. So any kind of book. You can imagine a book like a website. A website, when you go on it, it has different pages on it. So, what is a safe website to go on? Google Classroom. Okay, very good. So a website has different pages on it. It's going to have a page for the calendar. It's going to have a page with all of the classes. It's going to have different pages on it. So that's how you can compare a website so that you can remember the structure of it. A website is like a book, and the web pages are like the different pages inside of that book. And all of the pages are basically linked to each other. So if you're on one page, you should be able to go to another page from that one page. Basically, what I'm saying is that if you're on this page here, you shouldn't have to press this back button at the top here in order to go to somewhere else. You must be able to click on some part of the page to take you to somewhere else. So even if I go to calendar, I should be able from this page here to click somewhere and to take me to another part of the web page or another part of the website. So all of the pages are basically linked to each other. You guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So A web page is basically a document, just like how you have a Word document and you use a browser to open it. Now, those pages, they can contain text, they can contain images, videos, hyperlinks that can take you to other locations and so on. We all know that. When you go on a website, you see images, text, you see other hyperlinks that can take you to other websites and so on. Now, another key aspect to remember is that web pages use a language called HTML. This is very important to remember, hypertext markup language. That is what websites use to create the web pages. Now, one thing to take note of, it is not a programming language. Very important to remember. It's just a series of codes, you can say, that would be used to structure what you're putting on the website or what you're putting on the web page. It's just you telling the software, the browser, how to lay out all the elements on the web page. That's all it's doing. So this language, this markup language, has codes called tags. And let me see if I can find an example. I don't think they give an example here. You can actually inspect. Where it inspect? Elements. Good. That's what I'm looking for there. So notice here I brought up a part of a browser. Anybody ever accidentally brought up this part of the browser?
No, sir.
No? Well, this here is basically the HTML code that we're learning about right now, that for this web page that we're seeing right now. Because remember, this is a browser and I'm viewing this PDF inside of this browser here. So this is the HTML code it is going to use to structure the PDF so that it is opened inside of this browser. So when they say that it contains codes called tags, what they're referring to is these tags here. If you notice, there is some arrows. There's a left and right arrow with some of these words. Left and right arrow here, 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 and here. Those are called tags. And they basically tell the browser how to structure the information. That's the only purpose, to structure the information. So for instance here now, this tag has the name of head. What that basically means is that it is a header tag. So just like in your Word document, you have a header where you would have put your letterhead inside of. So your web page also has a header, and we use the header tag to put information inside of the header. So we can see the similarities there between an actual document and a web page document. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Which part about the tags?
Yes, sir.
Alright, so what I'm basically saying is that any word you see between double arrows is called a tag in HTML. And the tags are used for structuring the data on the page. So like how you would have a Word document and you would simply type the information, that is the exact layout it would appear on that page. However you type the information, that is how it will appear. It's kind of the same when you are creating a web page, when you are designing the code for a web page, it follows the same order. Whatever you put on top will appear at top. Whatever you put at the middle gonna appear in the middle. Whatever you put at the bottom gonna appear at the bottom. It follows that layout. But in order for the browser now to know how to format the information, like how to add bold or how to position it at the top, in the center, or to the left or to the right, it needs tags. That's the purpose of the tags.
I understand, sir.
Anybody with any questions? Alright, moving on. Hopefully you guys don't have any questions and you're just keeping it to yourself. Good. So the HTML language has codes called tags. I just showed you some examples. Now I'm going to share a list of some of the basic tags, and I'm going to actually go through a session whereby we're going to create a website using those tags. But like I said, it's not necessary for CSEC, but knowing what they are, what the basic ones are, is a good experience for you. Good. So it contains tags that a web browser uses to present the text and images on the web page. To present the text and image. So as I mentioned, those tags are what will be used to structure all the information, all the text, the images on the page. And then the browser interprets those tags to produce and format the web page. So it reads all of that information, all of the tags, all of the different formatting in the tags and so on, and that is how you get or view the information on the web page. You guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So your web page is basically a document. Imagine a Word document. A website is like having a book, multiple pages, multiple documents. You use HTML as the code to make a web page. The HTML has codes called tags, and those tags are what structures the data on the web page. Good. The use of HTML helps in two major ways. Brian, could you read that for us? Brian? Chelsea?
Pardon, sir?
Can you read for us?
Oh, sure. The use of HTML helps in two major ways. To share documents, HTML was created to help users share documents on the internet so that any browser can read a basic HTML document. To link to other documents, hyperlinks use an internet address for the related documents in the HTML code for the page. Clicking on the hyperlink either downloads the related material or views the document.
Good. So, why do we use HTML? Because we want to share documents. We want to share the information. Why do you go to a website? Isn't it to read information, to view information? Why do you go to YouTube? It's information you're taking in. Why do you go to Wikipedia? It's information you are taking in. Doesn't matter if you're watching a video, if you're reading something, you are taking in information. And that's the purpose of HTML, to share information. And as you mentioned, the web pages are basically pages, they're basically documents. So that's why we can say we are sharing documents. Now in the past, Web pages didn't have all of these fancy features that we have today. Like how you can go on YouTube and you would see a bunch of videos, um, you would see some GIFs, moving images, pictures. You can have a comment section. That wasn't like that in the past. When web pages were first created, they were basically documents whereby you would just go to the web page to read information. So it's like Wikipedia. Like how you would only go to Wikipedia to read information, that's basically how the internet was in the past. It was only to share information. But then, as time progressed, they realized we can do more, and that's why we are at the stage today. Now, HTML also helps us to link to other documents. And that process is called a hyperlink. Creating a hyperlink or using a hyperlink. A hyperlink is basically an internet address. All of these pages, these web pages, or these websites on the internet, they all have something called an internet address. You would have learned that in third form, where we looked at IP address. Each one of these websites have an internet address, and that is how we can navigate or go to the other pages. So if you are on one page and you click on the link or a hyperlink, it takes you to another page. It either takes you to another page, it takes you to another website entirely, or some would even allow you to download material. It will allow you to download a document, allow you to download a music file, whatever the case may be. So that's two ways that HTML was used. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right, next two paragraph. Bailey. Bailey.
Yes, sir. I gotta read from there.
Yes, Bailey.
Okay. In web, any web browser can be used to access a web page. The most common browsers are Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Microsoft Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Opera, and Apple Safari. Browsers let you view HTML files but not create them. You can open a web page by entering a unique web address called the URL in the address bar. For example, type in www.oup.com/Oxford CSEC for it. Opens the support webpage for this text. You can also use a search engine to find a new web page.
Good. So, as we mentioned, the web browser or the browser is what we use to view the web pages, like how Microsoft Word is used to view the Word documents. Common browsers: Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Internet Explorer, Mozilla Firefox, Opera, Apple Safari. Please remember these examples. Um, Questions in your exam might not be so straightforward. Select which is an internet browser. They might give you a totally different question. Which of the following is a programming language? And they might actually put one of these browsers there. So they try to trick you in that area. So even though you don't have to know every example, at least know what they are so that they don't fall prey to that. Browsers let you view the HTML files but not create them. You could only view with a browser. You would use an entirely different program in order to create these HTML files or these web pages. Um, so how do you access a web page? You access a web page through a URL. We did this in third form. Anybody remember what URL stands for? Somebody Google it quickly.
Uniform Resource Locator.
Very good. Uniform Resource Locator, another term that you should remember for your CSEC exam. That is the name of the address for the web page, a Uniform Resource Locator. So when you type in that address, for example, we have the example here of, well, technically this here is going to be to the main page. So www.oup.com. That is the URL to the home page of Oxford University. So www.youtube.com, that is the URL to YouTube. So whenever you typed in that page, that URL, it will take you to that web page. And what happened in the past is that if you did not know the URL or the address to a web page, then basically you could not have accessed that web page. You had to, you had to know the URL in order to access that page. But today we have a, should I call that a software? I don't think it's a software.
Sorry, engine, a search engine for it, like a autofill engine.
Yeah, search engine is a software. Good. So today we have a software called, well, it's not a software that runs on your computer, but it's a software that runs on the internet called a search engine. And it's something we kind of take for granted today, because you could simply type in the any word that you want, and it would give you all of the web pages related to that keyword that you would have typed in. So notice a web page here, a URL u.b. I don't know what kind of fake website is that. www.youtube.com, play.google.com, bing.com, all of those are URL. And that's how today we easily get the address to different web pages. It wasn't like that in the past. You have to know what the name of the web page is. So the purpose of the search engine is to help you to find the name of those addresses, or to find the web pages. So remember the function of the web page. Alright, it says here, in the earlier days, web pages were intended only to provide information for education and the government. Because as I mentioned, when web pages were first developed, it was used for sharing information for persons to read. So if it was only for reading, then government use, education, it would have been necessary in that area. But today, new websites are being created, existing ones are being updated and modified every day. A website can be standalone web page. So basically a website can be one page alone, or one document page alone, or it could be multiple web pages linked together through navigational links. So like how you have the Google Classroom and you can navigate between the different parts of Google Classroom, that is a website. So please take note of the terminologies. What is a web page? What is a website? So if you notice, our topic is web page design. So anybody could tell me what we're basically doing for this SVA?
Web page design.
Yes, but looking for specific.
We're designing one web page.
Exactly. We're only designing one page. That is all CSEC requires of you. CSEC doesn't require you to develop an entire website with 50 different pages. They just want one page. And everything is going to be on this one page. All of the requirements are going to be on that one page. So that's why I said to take note of the terminologies. A web page is just one page. A website is multiple web pages. And our topic is web page design. So all we're learning is how to develop one page. But that doesn't mean that we cannot have multiple pages, but that's all they're focusing on us creating one page. Are you guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
All right. So let's look at some types or categories of websites that we have in existence. All right. So Hodge, you can read the first three.
Static website. The content of this website remains generally the same, and in this way is like an online version of a paper-based brochure. Viewers cannot search for content. Editable brochure website. This website is the interactive version of the brochure website. Content is stored as it is updated so that visitors can search for and view past articles, web pages, or other content. Here, a user can log in and create new content, add content, insert images. Oh, dynamic website. Here, a user can log in and create a new content, add content, insert images, and generally control what is viewed on the website.
Good. So when something is static, what does that mean?
It doesn't move.
Good. It
Yeah.
doesn't move. So you can relate that now to a static website. It is a website that does not update. It doesn't change. So it's going to remain the same. So it's basically going to be used to share information. So that's going to be, as the example indicates, it's like a paper-based brochure. Like if you have a flyer and it's just to share information, you put up that and you just want persons to view that information. There's no reply, there's no way for them to change any information, there's no way for them to add information, nothing of that sort. The second one, an editable brochure website. This is a step up from the static. Basically, you share your information, but now you update the information that you are sharing. So if a new article comes out, you share it. If you have old articles, you keep it on the website. That way, persons can search for past articles, they can search for different keywords so that any one of the articles that have that keyword will come up. So basically, you can say they are capable of interacting with the website, with editable brochure website. Now, with a dynamic website, when something is dynamic, what does that mean?
So I could change.
Right. It's ever changing, it's constantly changing, moving. So, with a dynamic website now, that's how most websites are today. They're dynamic, they're always changing, they're always updating. They want the latest and the greatest features. So, they can always try to shift things around, change up different features so that navigation is easier, using the tools are easier. Like, for example, YouTube, The other day they would have moved the autoplay button from the top to the bottom or something like that. So they're constantly changing and updating to better the user experience. So these websites, you can log into them, you can create new account, you can add content, images, you can basically control what is on the website: YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and so on. Are we following so far?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Good. We have two more categories of websites. Durrani.
E-commerce website. This is a website that is integrated to receive online payments from visitors to the website. A web application. Web apps provide push notifications and can be added to a device's home screen without having to download it from an app store. Twitter Lite, Pinterest, and weather apps are examples that push notification to the user's phone or browser.
Very good. So the other example, e-commerce website. I'm sure you guys, what example came to mind when you heard e-commerce? When you heard this? When you read Durrani read this here?
eBay.
eBay,
Amazon. Yeah.
Amazon. Very good. eBay, Amazon, and whatever else uses online payments and so on. I guess they're not popular enough for us to remember them. Nevertheless, whatever website allows us to make purchases online, for us to do transactions online, those are called e-commerce websites. And lastly, we have web applications. These are basically applications, but they are basically working from the internet. So you always need internet connections. So like how we have applications today that we go to the Play Store, we download it, and it's a very large file. And all of that has to be downloaded to our phone, and it runs basically from your phone. It just needs internet connection to constantly update the information. That's basically how applications work. That's why some of them are so large. All of the content, all of the necessary tools and structures of the application is downloaded to your phone. And when it needs to update, that's why it needs internet access to constantly refresh and so on. But a web application now, it basically downloads like a skeletal structure of whatever the application is. So for example, Twitter or Facebook. Anyone ever use Facebook Lite?
Yeah.
What does it look like to you? Does it look like an exact version of the web browser? I think in
I
the
don't know.
past,
I can't remember.
I think in the past it would have looked like that, but I haven't used it in a while. But in the past it would have looked like that. So what I'm
So
trying to
which
do,
app?
Facebook Lite.
Um, I don't use it, so I won't.
Alright, good. So what I'm trying to get at is that these applications, they basically download like a skeletal structure of the application that you would need. And what happens is that you need constant internet connection because all the necessary data is on the internet. So you basically accessing the information from the internet. That's why they're actually so small. If you go on the Play Store right now and you check what is the size of Facebook Lite versus actual Facebook app, you're gonna see a major difference between the two application size because web application is basically using all the information or getting all the information from the internet. But it works just like if you're having application on your phone. Jeremiah, you wanted to say something?
That's I know.
That's actually how Chromebooks work. Some Chromebooks. That's why they can have such small storage because most of their applications are web-based applications. They have the web applications on the computer, and that's why it constantly needs internet access so that it can use those applications. So those are some of the categories of websites. Alright, let me finish off this last paragraph here and then we're gonna end there for the day. So the last paragraph, Hitesh.
Websites are popular because they cater to all types of audiences for education, entertainment, sports, or informational purposes. Knowing the purpose of a website therefore sets the tone for its content and organization. Creating a website that is formal or informal reflects the seriousness or carefree impression that visitors will use to decide if they continue to browse the pages.
Good. So the last paragraph is basically about planning, and that's what we're going to look at next week. I think next week is our next class. Or do we have another one this week? No, that's the next week. So I think yeah, that was on Monday. Alright, good. So the last paragraph is telling us about design, because now we're going to head into how to plan to design a web page. So the first step basically in creating a web page is for you to think about what kind of web page am I creating? Am I creating a web page about basketball? Am I creating a movie web page? Am I creating a web page to advertise my flower shop? What is the purpose of this website? And from that stage now, you are going to determine what should be the theme, what should be the color, what should be the overall layout. Because if you think about it, if Saints was to develop a website, Saints is a school, but if Saints develop a website and you go onto it and you see a bunch of party balloons and you see a bunch of different colors, rainbow colors, and basically things that do not relate to the school, then that's going to detract persons from being on the website. It's a school, so it needs to be professional. If it was advertising maybe for like a school party or something, then you might accept different colors or different fancy designs and so on. So it's just like if you're creating a flyer. Remember, a web page is like a document. Just like if you're creating a flyer, you need to know what is the theme, what am I developing, what am I showcasing, what information am I sharing, and that will determine the layout, the structure, the colors, the theme of your web page. You guys following?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. So you don't just go and create a website just like that. You have to know how to structure the information to capture your audience of who are going to be viewing the information. Good. So description of the websites, we're going to discuss that next week, planning and so on. So hopefully we finish that next week. Well, there's time. So in a review of what we looked at today, the basic points that you should remember: a web page is like a document, just like how we have a Word document. That's like a web page. A group of those pages is a website, just like how you would have a web book, a book. A browser is a software that you use to view those web pages. So that's your key point there. Second key point to remember is that HTML is the code you would use to create your web page. Hypertext Markup language. It is not a programming language. Third point to remember. And the fourth point is that it uses tags. We're going to look more at the different type of tags later on. Why do we have HTML? One reason is to share documents, share information. And another reason is to link to other documents or to link to other pages so that you don't just stay on one page, you can be able to move to another page, either another website entirely, download files, programs, whatever the case may be. Some common browsers, we have Chrome, Edge, Internet Explorer, and so on. Very important. Remember what is a URL. It is the address for a website. If you cannot remember, we cover this in Torrent Farm, so you can go over your notes for that. It described it a little more in detail in that in those notes. And what is a search engine? It's what we use to locate different URLs, web pages, and so on. We looked at the different categories. Remember, static, as the name implies, it doesn't change, it doesn't update. It's just for you to view. Editable, you can make some changes on it. Dynamic, it's constantly changing, constantly updating. Who's updating it? The user. The user is updating the information. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and so on. E-commerce, as the name implies, for business, for shopping, for payments, and so on. A web application is basically an application that is on the internet and you're accessing it through the internet, through a browser, through an application. Good. So if you guys don't have any questions, anything that you need clarification on, I guess that will be the end of today's class. Enjoy the rest of the day.
You too, sir.
Bye, sir.